Hi everyone, I'm Cintia Kawasaki, founder of the Crocus Project, and today I'm here to share with you my experience in Nepal. And for those who don't remember, in late April this year there was a big earthquake that was followed by a second earthquake in May. And right after the first earthquake, friends started messaging me, asking questions such as, Cynthia, what are you doing for Nepal? Cynthia, I want to donate my money. So can you recommend me an organization I could donate my money? Or even some complex questions like, Cynthia, how do I know if the money that I put in an organization, how do I know if it's actually reaching the most vulnerable victims of this earthquake? And so truth is, I did not know how to answer any of those questions. But I believe that if we don't know the answer, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do anything. It doesn't mean that we should just cross our arms or not do anything. So I decided to dig into the topic, and I read a lot about the topic, and I also went to Nepal. I spent 5 weeks in the country, and this video is basically me sharing with you what I have learned along the process. So the first part of this video, it's going to be me just sharing with you some books or other great sources of information that helped me understand the topic. And then the second part I will share with you, it's the most interesting part, I should say. It's me sharing with you what I've learned on the ground, practically speaking. And then the third part of this video will be, if you're interested in still doing something for Nepal, I will recommend you 3 organizations that you can donate your money. So first, the books, right? What I've learned in theory. Here, if you're interested, I would recommend you 3 books. Not 3 books, sorry. I would recommend you 2 books. The first one is The Politics and Policies of Relief, Aid and Reconstruction, and it was edited by Fulvio Atina. And this book presents what political scientists and anthropologists have said about the topic. So it is indeed more of a theoretical book. But what's interesting about this book is that it presents 2 different contrasting approaches for analysis. The first approach analyzes humanitarian intervention, relief and reconstruction under the light of interest of states. So it considers the national government interest as the primary point of analysis. Now the second approach considers more the importance of international organizations and non-governmental actors in disaster relief, which is something that I'm more inclined to believe in. But well, if you're interested in more of a practical book, I have a second book to recommend. It's called Chasing Chaos, My Decade In and Out of Humanitarian Aid, and it was written by Jessica Alexander. And what I like about this book is that it's very, very practical. So she brings her own experience on the ground. She talks about the realities of being an aid worker, and she mentions her experiences in Darfur, Rwanda, and also Haiti. So it is, I could strongly recommend this book if you're interested. Now for great sources of information online, I have 2 websites to recommend. The first one is Relief Web. It's just a great platform for anything related to humanitarian matters. The second website is called Prevention Web. And in this case, it doesn't talk about what you do after a disaster, but it's more of before, like how to prevent, how to minimize the risks, how to assess before anything happens, before a disaster strikes anywhere. So this is very, very important as well, so that's why I'm recommending here to you. And now something more related to Nepal. This is the context we're analyzing, right? So I have 2 sources of information. Number one is quakehelpdesk.org. It's also a website online, and it's an initiative that tries to ensure public accountability for relief efforts. And the idea is to evaluate spending, is to actually check resource mobilization at the local level. So it is a quite interesting website. And inside this website, you find a really interesting bulletin. It's called Open Mic Nepal Bulletin. and it's a publication, it's like a periodical publication in which they identify the needs of affected communities. And also they capture some rumors or perceptions on the ground, so it can give you great insights as well. Now for my last recommendation, it's called earthquake.opennepal.net, and this is like a monitoring system for aid flow for the earthquake disaster in Nepal. Now for the second part, which is the most important part, not most important, but I mean the most interesting part. What have I learned practically speaking? I spent 5 weeks in the country, engaging with the people, talking to the victims. I was trying to see through their eyes, their perceptions of the work of these organizations that were providing them relief. I stayed there from, it was end of August until beginning of October. And I went to several relocation camps, several IDP camps. I should say IDP means internally displaced persons, which are the people that lost their homes in the earthquake, so they had to relocate to some provisory camps where they are living in tents. So if you follow me, this first images that you're seeing right now, it's in Dading. It's a relocation camp in Dading, and this is more the rural area of the country. And when asked about the main difficulties, people reported that they were very worried about the lack of food and also shelter. So why did I mention lack of food? It's because most of them are farmers and they have lost everything. And well, when I filmed this images, it was 4 months after the earthquake. So most of the organizations had withdrawn from the country because the emergency phase had passed. So they had no more relief being delivered to them in terms of food, and also they were there in this relocation camp waiting to be resettled somewhere else because the government allowed them to stay there for 6 months. So in 2 months from the time that I made this video, they would have to leave, but they had nowhere to go. And the government, this process of resettling people is also something more complicated. And now if you follow me on these other images, this is a relocation camp in more of the outskirts of Kathmandu central area. It's in Chuchapati in the slums. Contrary to the previous camp that I showed you, the government actually allowed them to stay for as long as they need. And this is one of the few camps that grew over time. So right in the aftermath of the earthquake, there were just a few tents there, but over time it grew bigger and bigger. And in the time of this footage, it was about 7,000 people living there. And when asked about the difficulties, the locals reported that there was a lot of mismanagement of resources. What do I say by mismanagement? It was like an upfront number of people. They were kind of getting all the donations and relief from the organizations, and they were just keeping it for themselves. They were not sharing with the entire camp. So they did report this kind of issues. They also reported a lot of, but they also reported some cases of disappearance of women and girls. So women and children were possibly disappearing because of human trafficking. So this is an issue that I'll talk about later. I did go to more IDP camps, I did go to more relocation camps, and from my experience, we cannot generalize the problems of one to all of them. Even though they went through the same tragedy, each place that I went to, the locals and people reported different needs. So we can't actually generalize anything here. Now, going back to the question in the beginning of the video, right? The question was, is giving money to organizations that work with disaster relief a good or a bad thing to do? Well, this is a very, very complex question to answer, I would say. But I would humbly say, from what I saw on the ground, from my experience being in Nepal and talking to the people that are living the problem, I would say that if you want to donate to these organizations, do so. You know, when I was talking to most of the people there, they were all saying how grateful they were to have this international or local organizations providing them relief right in the aftermath. And after all, everybody needs shelter, food, water when they lose everything, and these organizations are there to somehow provide them with in this regard. So now, if you ask myself, Cynthia, what I would do for the people, I would donate my money to an organization that has a long history in the country. So why do I say that? Because I believe that these organizations know the context they're working with, and they're also there in the long term, not only in just the emergency phase. So I would definitely try to find a trustful organization that has a long history working in the country. And I would also choose something that I am interested with, right? So I am a feminist, so I tend to work to look for organizations that work with women. So if you are interested in education, you can probably find another organization that works with education. Now, I know that this is not so easy to do, right? I know that finding these organizations are not so easy, but I've done it for you in Nepal, in the case of Nepal. So this is a good segue to the last part of this video, which is what can we still do for people in Nepal? And well, if you are there in your sofa just wondering, oh, what can I do for the people in Nepal? I have the answers for you. I will recommend to you 3 organizations you can put your money in, and it will be very valuable for them. And I saw their work on the ground, so I'm not inventing stuff up here, okay? I did see their project sites, I did get involved with them, so I strongly recommend. But before saying anything about the organizations, I want to say that if you're interested in helping, if you want to help, in the case of any disaster in the world, anywhere, please do not go there. Do not try to roll up your sleeves and, oh, people are dying, I need to go there. Please just don't do it, okay? Because you're gonna probably end up causing more harm than good for the people you're trying to help. So like, for example, in Haiti in 2010, there were like these goodwill doctors, and they came in the country and they didn't even know how to feed themselves. So you definitely don't want to go through, you know, that. And well, I want to say something. It's nothing related to Nepal, but I have a friend that works in refugee in an NGO that works with refugees in Brazil, and she told me that the other day this person called the office asking, "Oh, I heard about Syria. I want to know how I get there." So, guys, please don't be so nonsense like that. You know, people are fleeing the country and you're trying to go there to, what exactly do you want to do, you know? So please, just don't try to do that. Put your money in an organization that you trust. And don't try to donate in-kind stuff as well. Don't try to send water or other stuff, because this is gonna just end up being completely chaotic. So just put your money in some organization that you researched. And all right, so for the organizations, the first organization I would like to recommend is called Women for Human Rights, and they're focused in single women. By single women, I mean widows, divorced women, women that lost their husbands in civil war or for other causes. And this organization is doing an incredible job in advocacy work. So they did manage to change some laws and policies that discriminate women. And you must be asking yourself, so why are you talking about women, Cynthia? Well, because we do have to talk about women. In Nepal, there's this widespread discrimination against women, and if you're single, you're like a second-class citizen. You are even more discriminated. So for you to imagine, I'm going to illustrate this with what I lived in Nepal. So I actually got involved with this organization. I was most of my time in Nepal was volunteering for this organization. So the first day I arrived in the organization, I met this lovely lady. She was adorable, and so her story is how she got to the NGO, how she arrived there. And the way she arrived there is because her husband had died, and her in-laws almost beat her to death. So, and they left her, so they just left her bleeding on the streets with two kids. So in Nepal, there's this belief that if your husband died, that's your fault. It was because of you. So her in-laws just beat her to death and left her with nothing out in the streets. So this is how disgusting the world can be towards women. And so we do have to talk about women, okay? And as I said before, I heard so many stories going to the IDP camps about women and children going missing. And there's also another story. So I went to Gorkha, which is one of the most affected districts, and I was hearing the people there. And this woman, she told me that just after the earthquake, well, I should say before that households families that lost their homes, they were entitled to receive 15,000 rupees, which is about $150 from the government. And so this woman, she went to the local government office to ask for the 15,000 rupees that she was entitled to receive. But when she got there to get the money, the response that the local officer gave to her was, why should I give you the money? Your family is only you and your disabled daughter. There are no men. There's no men in your family. Why would I give you any money? So this kind of situation, this kind of stories I heard over there. And so there is a lot of discrimination against women there. And in short, we do have to talk about women. But I don't mean to extend on this. So I did record a interview with Lily Tapa. She's the founder of the organization, and in this video she talks about the work of the organization, what they did for earthquake affected communities right after the earthquake, and then what are the plans for the long term. They're planning to do in Gorkha a long-term reconstruction project. So you can see her talking about it in the video. And also, she also talks about if you donate your money, where your money will go to. Okay, so now the second organization is called Nepal Mahila Ekata Samaj. And this is a Nepali NGO as well. And it's a network of women from slum communities, and they work with landless people. So in Nepal, if you don't have ownership of land, you're not entitled to have to be a citizen. You're not entitled to have birth and citizen certificate, and you are also not allowed to have government services, to have access to government services like water, sanitation, electricity. So this organization tries to advocate for their rights to have rights for shelter. I did also record an interview with Bhagavati Adhikari. She's the program coordinator for the NGO, so you can access the link as well. And an interesting story. When I went to the office, the NGO office, I asked her about the disaster. I asked, so Bhagavati, what happened after the disaster? And she told me, oh, Cynthia, which disaster are you talking about? Are you talking about the earthquake? If you're talking about the earthquake, we were all relatively safe because we live in one-story houses, and because we live in a relatively open area, we were quite safe. Now, let me tell you about the disasters that happen to us every single year. And so she told me, because so the places that she lives, it's in the riverbanks of Bagmati River, so they're very, very close to the river. And during monsoon season, when there are heavy downpours, the level of the river rises up. And so a lot of people along the riverbanks lose their homes. And this is something that happens in a yearly basis. So if you follow me on the images, I did walk around with Bhagavati. And so you can see in this images how people are living very close to the river. So if we're talking about disasters, we don't have to go that far, right? We don't have to talk about big disasters. This kind of disasters happen to them every single year. Now, if you look in this other footage, I was filming on the back side of the house. I mean, backside from the street, the house, and you can see how you can see the situation that people are living in, and it's quite dangerous. And the work of this organization is exactly they're trying to resettle somewhere else, somewhere safer, and so they're trying to advocate their rights with the government. So for the final organization is called Shanti Volunteer Association, and this is a Japanese NGO that provides relief activities in countries that were struck by a disaster. So in the case of Nepal, I did go to their project sites, and the images you're seeing right now is it's a women's shelter. They were building a women's shelter together with their local counterpart. Now, I must say that if you donate your money for this organization, it's not going to go for Nepal because they have already ceased their work over there. But they work in other places like Afghanistan, Cambodia, Laos, so I'm sure it's going to be, your money is going to be very valuable for them somewhere else in the world. Now, to finalize this video, I must say that disaster relief is definitely not an easy topic to unravel, okay? It's definitely not easy. And I think there's a lot more room for investigation. So specifically more of like who does what, for what reason, and for whom. So for example, in the case of Nepal, in order for the international organizations to work on the ground, they had to go through the government and the local government. And the local government was the one deciding where the organization could place their projects and their work. And that was, of course, a lot biased in their own political influence in certain regions. So that's why I saw some duplication of efforts in some places, and that's why I believe that other places didn't get any assistance at all. So anyways, this is just to say that there is a need for a proper investigation of disaster relief and emergencies and cases like this. And the academic world is not so fast in responding to that. And also, I mean, this video, I didn't mean to provide you all the answers, not at all. I'm not an expert or anything, but I'm just a person interested in knowing how we can properly help people in such deadly situations. So I hope that this video is a window for like a fruitful discussion of what we, human beings, what we collectively, what we can do to help people in such situations like Nepal. Thank you so much for watching. I must say that my next topic will be about human trafficking. I'll be talking about what happens to women and girls that are abducted by human traffickers. So thank you so much, and see you next time. Hi, namaste. Yahako nyano atitye kolagi, dere dere danyaba. Nepal ma hajur haru sanga basera, sare ramailo lagyo. Feri feri puna Nepal auni chacha. Puna yahalai dere dere danyaba.